is our supply. Supply is the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at each possible price during a given time period. All right, let's put that into real words and figure out what that actually means. So, here's my example. I once asked my class who had a lemonade stand last summer, and I bet you can imagine that only one person said I did, and it was because they had a little brother and they were helping him out and having fun. And I asked the class, well, why didn't anyone else have a lemonade stand? And they looked at me like I was crazy, and then somebody explained to me, well, why would we do that? What's the point? And I said, well, you're selling stuff, and when you're selling things, the point is always, they said, well, you can't make any money at a lemonade stand. I said, well, why not? And they told me, well, you only sell those cups of lemonade for about a quarter. All right, so let's graph that out. So the going price of lemonade is about 25 cents. And at a price of lemonade, or of 25 cents for a little cup of lemonade, I only had one student who was willing to go out there and sell lemonade. You really couldn't make that much money doing it, so only one person would. So there's our quantity column. So then I said, well, what if that price of lemonade went up to 50 cents? Who would be willing and able in this class to go out there and sell lemonade for 50 cents? I had a couple more people raise their hand. And 3. Okay, well, let's say that you could sell that little tiny Dixie cup of lemonade for $1. For whatever reason, people were willing to go up there and buy that cup for $1. How many people would be out there selling lemonade for $1? People started thinking, $1? Heck, if I can sell 20 of those, that's 20 bucks. Well, I had about 5 people that time. Yeah, sure, I'll do it. 2 more than the 3 is 5. All right, well, let's say that for whatever reason, people were willing to spend $5 on one of those little tiny cups of lemonade. How many people would be willing and able to go out there and sell that lemonade, have a lemonade stand? People started getting excited that, $5. If I sell 20 of those, that's $100. That's awesome. And out of my class of 30, 20 people said, heck yeah, I'll do that. I will have a lemonade stand. Then I said, all right, well, now let's think, what if you could sell that lemonade for $10? How many people would go out there and have a lemonade stand? And out of my class of 30, everyone raised their hands. And I raised my hand too. I said, sorry guys, you're going to have to go find a new econ teacher because I am now a lemonade stand operator. So 31 people would go out there and have a lemonade stand. All right. Well, that is the law of supply right there. So the law of supply states that as the price of something increases, the quantity supplied, look at this graph, the quantity supplied, does it increase or decrease as the price increases? Well, as we go from a price of 25 cents to $10, the quantity supplied went from 1 to 31. So the law of supply, as price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. And therefore, when price goes down, comma, quantity supplied goes down, comma, ceteris paribus. Meaning we're not thinking of all of those what-ifs. There is our law of supply. We can show the law of supply by writing it out like that. And what we drew here, this chart right here, shows the law of supply. And that is called your supply schedule. If you remember from the demand lecture, there was a demand schedule, and this is a supply schedule. All right, well, after we have our schedule, then we can turn it into a graph or a curve. So we are going to take these numbers and we are going to graph them out. So, of course, we need our X and Y axes. Remember, P has a vertical line in it, so your vertical axis is the P for price. And then your horizontal axis is the Q for quantity. And remember that this is your origin and it always stands for the number 0. If you get further away from the origin, your numbers are getting bigger. So price, we need to go from 25 cents to $10. So let's go up by 2 every $2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that right here we've got $2, $4, $6, $8. And that last one up there is $10. All right. And then for quantity, we need to go from 1 to 31. So let's go up by 5. So we've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. All right, and now we plot our points. So our first point is 25 cents and 1. So 25 cents would be right about there. And 1 would be right about here. So 25 cents and 1 is right about there. Our next point is 50 cents and 3, which is right about here. $1 and 5, right about there. $5 and 20. So now we've got $5 is up here, 20 is way over here. So remember, you go over horizontally, you go up vertically, and where those two things meet, that is where you plot your point. And then $10 and 31, which is right about there. And then we get to connect the dots, which is everybody's favorite part. And although it's not perfect, what you're looking at is an upward sloping line, and we label that with an S over there. So that is called your supply curve. Supply curve, or you could call it a graph, but in economics they like to call it the curve. So the supply curve is always upward sloping. Remember, the demand curve was downward sloping. I'm going to show you guys a little trick with supply and demand. When you put them together, which we will do soon, you end up with something that looks like this. This is your basic supply and demand curve. Now, remember, the curves show the laws that, for demand, when the price goes down, the quantity goes up. Or another quick trick, that's demand, that's supply. Demand starts with a D and it goes down. D, demand, down. And then supply, if you write it out, supply, S-U-P-P-L-Y, supply has the word up in it, so the supply curve goes up. A little trick to help you remember which one is the supply curve and which one is the demand curve.